It's okay to not agree with the doctor and get a second opinion. Now, don't be going for a third, fourth, fifth until you find somebody who's going to say what you like, because that's not the way it works. But if something really doesn't sit well and there's a family history and you just don't think they're listening, it's okay to see somebody else and get that second opinion. Perimenopause symptoms align with a lot of other things. So just because you're having symptoms, if you think back to when I talked about my chronic illness, I had to go through a lot of blood work, x-rays, ultrasounds, and all kinds of tests before they determined it was fibromyalgia, because joint pains is part of quite perplexed by this as well. So they were sitting there, middle of winter, snow knee deep outside, sub-zero temperatures, really, really cold. And we could be sitting at the dinner table. We could be sitting in front of the TV. We could be, playing a game. And all of a sudden, Mommy's face would go beet red. And I'd be like, excuse me, I'll be right back. And I would get up in my shorts and my tank top, no socks on, and walk out onto the front porch on my bare feet in the freezing cold, melting the snow, because I was just overheating. You could see the steam. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Fifties Unscripted. My name is Shelley, and I am so excited to have you here and joining me as I tell my tales from the trenches as I embrace my second act. For those of you that are new here, Fifties Unscripted is really just taking a look at the lived experiences that we go through and the fact that life really is not like a movie or a TV show. It's fully unscripted. Every person, every situation is different, and how we approach them and how we deal with them may not be the same and may not be what we need. So what works for one person may not work for another. So I'm hoping that through these podcasts and through these different episodes to share some of my experiences and hopefully give you some thoughts, some suggestions, some ideas, or even just commiserate together over some of the hardships and things that we face in life and realize that you're not alone on this journey. So today's topic is one that wasn't in my original list. I'm not sure why. But when I did tell friends I was going to do this podcast, they all were like, oh, you better be talking about this one. So I'll give you one guess. Today's episode is entitled Holy Hormones. So for most of us who are in my age range, you will understand exactly what I'm talking about. Today, we're actually going to talk about menopause. So some basics first. As I've said before, am not a doctor. I'm not a therapist. All I'm doing is sharing what I know, what I found out through my reading, my research, my discussions with doctors, and what worked for me. Always talk to your medical professional, get your advice, and do what works for you. So just to level set that so that we're very clear on that piece. So first, I'm just going to start off with some of the basics. So what is menopause? Well, when I was a kid, and I looked at it, menopause was something that just happened to old people. Now, I don't like myself saying that as a kid because that's happening to me. Then after hitting puberty, and I believe what everyone said was, hey, you just had your first menstrual cycle. Congratulations, you get this for the next 30 to 40 years. What? Or actually 40 to 50 years, I think what they said. So what is it? It really is. Menopause is a time in life where the female reproductive stage is done. You no longer have babies. That's what it is. You're just done. That reproductive stage of your life is over. It can happen generally between the ages of 45 and 55, although it does vary. I know people who have gone earlier. I know that people that have gone later. I'm 52 and I'm still not there. We're hoping. Sometimes there are also medical conditions that can impact a person, and they have to have certain procedures done that could speed up that process. So they may go through menopause earlier. So again, if you're not there yet, don't worry about it. Life is different for everybody. There isn't a set script. This is the average. Sometimes some of us, we like to exceed averages. So it's simple, right? Easy enough to understand. I think it's pretty much clear as mud. You hit a certain age and it's done. The problem is when I hit my 40s, I learned about a thing called perimenopause, because it's not just a stage where it stops. We get the build up to menopause. So we get to go through a whole bunch of experiences and different symptoms as we prepare for that. And that can last several years. So from my experience, I have been dealing with perimenopause for almost probably just over 10 years. So it's been a long journey for myself. But basically, that's it. So you have perimenopause, which is the pre, the build up for. Menopause, which is really just you've hit a milestone. You've gone 1 year without your cycle. You are now considered to have hit menopause. And then you have postmenopause where you deal with whatever comes next. So looking online, you're going to see a whole bunch of different studies, and it's going to talk about all kinds of different stages. And honestly, like I found some that were giving me 5 stages of menopause. Like there's so much information out there. So just like I said, talk to your doctors, get the right information. And just like I said, it is never the same for everyone. Some people may have a ton of symptoms. Some people may have next to none. Some people, it may be the easiest thing in the world. Other people may be going, oh my goodness, when is this going to end? The most common way, as I said, is the 3 stages: perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. So I'm kind of in that peri stage. And I've been here, like I said, for about 10 years with a whole bunch of different symptoms. And those symptoms could be different depending on your situation. So you may or may not get at them. You may have others. You may have all of them. You may have only 1 or 2. So part of what I did is I wanted to kind of look back and see what else there was. Like I searched online and I did uncover something just to make sure, because what I went through may be different than others. So I just wanted to kind of be able to, answer that accordingly. If you live in Ontario, here in Canada, the Ontario Health has just recently released Canada's first quality standard for menopause care. It is titled Menopause Care for Women and Gender Diverse People. So I am going to be putting an article out, so be sure to check the links and check the website because you'll see all that information. And that should be coming out later this week. And I'm going to share more information on that research. And as I'm doing that, I'm looking to see if there are other provinces in Canada that have similar things. So that is a great resource that gives you some more information on how they are approaching menopause and how they are helping people go through that. So before I talk about my recent experience, let's first look at some general details. It is a transitional phase. It's a change, which life is. Life is all about changes. It's a time leading up to that final cycle, and you have to go 12 months without a cycle before it's considered. I remember the first year I was so excited. I think I made it to 6 months left to go. So I was halfway through the year and then I started up again. The last time between 51 and 52, I was even more excited because I was 3 months away from that golden number and it didn't happen. So fingers crossed, and I'm not jinxing myself. I'm not talking about how close I am, but fingers crossed that my journey is going to move on and transition to the next thing. As I said, this can go on for a long time. And on average, it's 4 years. But if you're like me, I like to beat the average. The most common symptoms, depending on who you are, can be irregular cycles, irregular flow during those cycles, some spotting in between. You can have vasomotor symptoms, and I'm going to talk about this because I have those. Hot flashes, night sweats, very frequent. You can have sleep problems, so difficulty sleeping or insomnia can really be a problem as well when you think about it. Like, face it, who can sleep when they're having night sweats? Have you ever woken up with those? It's not fun. Mood changes, thus the title Holy Hormones. We do have a lot of mood swings and irritability that can occur, and other symptoms that can vary from person to person: headaches, brain fog, changes in skin, hair, joint pain, and the list goes on. So how do we manage this? Did I previously mention that I'm not a doctor? I just want to remind everybody that. So one, perimenopause symptoms align with a lot of other things. So just because you're having symptoms, if you think back to when I talked about my chronic illness, I had to go through a lot of blood work, x-rays, ultrasounds, and all kinds of tests before they determined it was fibromyalgia, because joint pains is part of perimenopause as well. So there are lots of symptoms that are very, very similar. So that's why it is so important that you talk to your doctor to make sure that you're not missing something. Do not become a Google MD. Remember that friend who helped me out before? She reminds me consistently when I call her in a panic because I saw something on Google to remind me that I am not the doctor and I need to stop reading. So don't read too far ahead. The other very important thing that you need to understand, even if you are perimenopausal, you have not hit menopause, which means your reproductive system still works, which means you can still get pregnant. So please be cognizant of that and do whatever you need to do. The biggest thing is making lifestyle changes. That's what I've seen most commonly is the recommendations. Healthy diet, regular exercise, stress-reducing activities can help to manage your symptoms. And I know one of the things I learned when I was starting my weight loss, and the doctor said this, which is why I'm optimistic that I might be on the right direction this time. being overweight. So because I was considered obese, was impacting my ability to go through because your hormones are fluctuating that much more. So hopefully the weight loss is going to regulate my hormones a bit more as well and help me to lose weight, or to cross the threshold. So we'll see how that all goes. So that was something I learned. At least that's what the doctor told me. So that's one of the things. So it is about making lifestyle changes so that you can adjust to everything. So just as we talked about with, losing weight, it's about making lifestyle choices. If all you're looking at is, I just need a diet to lose this weight quickly, how are you going to sustain that? What are you going to do to keep it going afterwards, right? What are the lifestyle changes you can make to make sure you're not doing diet after diet after diet and you can stay there and not yo-yo back up and down? When you start self-care, it's great if you manage your stress and get it under control. However, if you don't change your lifestyle to incorporate those healthy habits, to incorporate those mindful moments, you're not going to be able to sustain that, and you'll find your stress and your ability to cope goes up. Routine, your habits. We can do a habit for 30 days. Guess what? All it takes is 1 day to lose it. 2, and it's hard to come back, right? So the more we miss, the more it gets. So these are lifestyle changes. And so it's important to remember that every change we go through should result us in looking at what we do and what we can do to continue to support and continue and sustain that. When you're considering your treatments, it is going to depend on your symptoms and the recommendations from your doctor. There are many, many different symptoms. Some could result in hormonal therapy requirements, which could be medication. Some may be non-hormone medications. So it could be, I've heard people using oils and essential oils and supplements and stuff like that, or other treatments. And I'll talk about some that I went through. There are some medical procedures that are sometimes required. And lastly, address your sleep issues. If you're already struggling with sleep, cognitive behavior therapy is great. It helps with a lot of different things. So therapy, again, firm believer in therapy. It can help with insomnia. It can help you just, really deal with your mental health so that you can rest, you can find that happy medium and follow through on all the changes that you want to make. But getting sleep is a priority. So as much as this is a physical thing, it's also impacting your mental health and wellness as well. So you need to combine both together. All right, so that's it. That's what I've learned. That's what I researched prior to this as well. And that's some of the stuff that I've learned from doctors. So now let's just talk about what I went through. So as I've stated, I've been in perimenopause. I can't seem to say that word today. Perimenopause for quite some time. The exact timing is hard for a number of reasons. So 1, I talked about how symptoms are very similar. So I have overall health issues. That meant there was a lot of assessments that I had to go through. So some of the symptoms are very similar. So there was a lot of blood work to assess my hormone levels and rule out if perimenopause was there. And sometimes that's my hormones were normal or not low enough to signal that I was actually starting perimenopause. So they knew that that was different. Through the blood work, they could also see the inflammation. Inflammation was pointing to the rheumatoid arthritis. So there were things that they could tell from my blood work, as well as from the x-rays where they could see the arthritis and everything starting to form. So there are ways that they can uncover other symptoms that are similar to this. Then I reached a point where there were certain problems I was having with my cycle, and that's where it started to show more of that. So some of those other symptoms that I did go through were a lot. And part of the problem is because of all the major lifestyle changes I was also undergoing, as I said in my second episode, and I probably said in the first one as well, at 45, I went through a separation. So that's a huge amount of stress. Hormones are all over the map. There was mood swings, depression. I talked about my mental health struggle as well. This all affects my sleep and mood. So it was really, really hard to diagnose. But one of the things, as I said early on in this episode, is that the vasomotor symptoms, and I really do hope I'm pronouncing that properly, and were related to hormone changes. And that is where I had the most symptoms, because I went through hot flashes and night sweats. They were my nemesis. They were my nemesis. They were my joker. They were my kryptonite. They were all that bad stuff. No matter what time of year, I always wore a tank top and shorts at the ready. Like, they were everywhere we went. I had them so that I could change if I needed to. Even when we went to families or friends, like, I was layered. Everything was I was the layered queen, because if I was cold, I would be cold for 2 minutes and then I would be sweating bullets. Everything at night had to be super light, breathable materials, and again, layers of blankets so that I could just peel as I needed to. When my kids were younger, they were quite perplexed by this. We would be sitting there, middle of winter, snow knee deep outside, sub-zero temperatures, really, really cold. And we could be sitting at the dinner table. We could be sitting in front of the TV. We could be, playing a game. And all of a sudden, Mommy's face would go beet red. And I'd be like, excuse me, I'll be right back. And I would get up in my shorts and my tank top, no socks on, and walk out onto the front porch on my bare feet in the freezing cold, melting the snow, because I was just overheating. You could see the steam. My kids were perplexed. They couldn't understand, why does Mommy get to do that? Why do we have to put on our boots and our coat to go stand with her while she's doing that? In the summer, it was the opposite. They couldn't understand why when they were hot, they couldn't stick their head in the freezer to cool down, or go stand in front of the fridge longer, or keep putting all the cold stuff on their neck. They also didn't find it very fun that when they came with their cold drink, thinking they could shock me, that they'd put it against me and I'd be like, oh, that feels so good. Thank you. So their little jokes and pranks didn't always work out the way they wanted. That was just the way I went. The worst place, though, and I'm sure my neighbors thought I was going a little berserk at times. The worst place, though, was really at work. You're sitting in a meeting, you're having an intense discussion, and I could just feel the heat slowly start to rise. And you're trying, it's not a fun conversation sometimes. And then it looks like you're so much more emotional as your face is going red, 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 red. And you're just dying of heat and you're sweating. So that was rough. And I did not enjoy that. The one thing I did learn is that peppermint oil for me was one. I went to a store one time and they were like, oh, here, let me put this on you. And I was like, oh, that actually cooled me down. So I do keep that handy, and I do like that. That was something that worked for me. There are other ones that people have told me about, but I can't remember because they didn't work for me. So they told me and then I forgot about it because they just didn't do anything. I did have also a lot of night sweats, and that was the worst because I would wake up soaking wet, and the mattress, it was just my clothes. I went through so much laundry, and it just adds to the workload and everything else. So while that was all problematic, it was all part of menopause. So there's not really, there were things they could suggest, but there wasn't really much. Where I did get referred to a gynecologist was when I started to experience a lot of problems with my cycle. And that was when I went through a series. So the first gynecologist I saw was like, we shouldn't do the hysterectomy. That's not the right way to go. Let's just do an IUD. So it was a intrauterine device that kind of treats it like the pill, but it was just, I didn't have to worry about taking the pill all the time. So we used that. It kind of helped to slow everything down and made everything more manageable. But I also wanted to make sure after a year of that, or a couple of years of that, whatever the timeline was that I could have it, I did want to make sure I could know when I was going through menopause and when things were starting. So I didn't want to keep having the hormones there. So I stopped that and had been referred to a new gynecologist because there was a change and we'd moved and everything. So when I saw her, we tried, there was an injection that we did, and that worked great. It was a needle, but it only lasts for 3 months, and then you have to go back. So we only did that temporarily because I was waiting for a medical procedure. So because of the issues I was having, they did what was called a uterine ablation. So they basically burn the lining of the uterus, which hopefully stops everything from happening. Again, remember I said I like to beat the odds? Yeah, I'm that percentage of people it doesn't work for. So unfortunately, again, thought I was going in the right direction. It didn't stop everything. So I didn't really want to have needles every 3 months. Also, needles do irritate my fibromyalgia, so not my favorite thing to do. And then it's, again, you have to get the prescription, book an appointment at the gynecologist, go see the gynecologist. It's just a lot. So I just figured, let's just do whatever is best. Based on my age, the doctor, while she said we could do a hysterectomy, the risks, they've improved it over the years. It's much different than what it would have been like for our parents, 40, 50 years ago. There is still risk. And at 51, at the time that I was seeing her, she's like, there's no point in taking that risk. Even though she hadn't seen it happen, why would you gamble at this age? You're going to go through menopause soon enough. It's not worth it. Earlier, she might have done it, but not at this time. So with that in mind, I went back on the pill for a few years. But the benefit here was I could control it. I could take it continuously so that I didn't have to deal, and I controlled when I was experiencing my cycle. But again, to continue on that, it's changing and managing your hormones. It wasn't letting my body go through it. So now I'm off all medication, knock on wood, headed in the right direction, and just dealing with the symptoms. The good news is I'm going to be knocking on wood all this thing. The hot flashes and the night sweats, they're not as prevalent. They're not as often. I still get them, just not as often. We'll just see where things go. And hopefully, as I said, I'm 52. I'll be 53 next year. So hopefully I'm on the right path. So the best thing that I can say here is as you're going through, and I've said this at every episode that we've talked about where it involves medical or situations, always trust your gut. If you think something is happening, if you think something's off, talk to your doctors. And one of the things that I have learned, it's okay to not agree with the doctor and get a second opinion. Now, don't be going for a third, fourth, fifth until you find somebody who's going to say what you like, because that's not the way it works. But if something really doesn't sit well and there's a family history and you just don't think they're listening, it's okay to see somebody else and get that second opinion and explain, here's what my doctor said, here's what I was thinking, what is the right? And they'll tell you. And you can do that. That is something we tend to forget. It's the same thing when you go to a therapist. If it's not the right fit and you don't really get along with them, thank them for their time and tell them that you're just going to look for somebody else. Can they recommend somebody because it's just not gelling? And that's okay because it's your gut. You have to trust and do what you need, right? This is about what is best for you. It doesn't invalidate what the doctor does. The doctor may have given you perfectly good advice, but if your gut's telling you there's something else, keep asking questions, keep looking into it, and feel free to get that second opinion. As I said, had I done that, I might have gone through menopause a little earlier with a hysterectomy because I might have gotten a second opinion and been told to do that. I might not have. Who knows, right? There's different circumstances for everything, and hindsight is always 20/20. But that is something that is just important for you to be aware of. So what's next for me aside from never having to buy or pack feminine products for myself? I'm not sure yet. One thing I do know, no more babies, although I had kind of confirmed that when I had, after my third pregnancy, because of all my complications and my age, I did have a tubal ligation done. So I knew that wasn't going to be a problem. But I definitely know that once this is all going on, between the tubal ligation, the uterine ablation and menopause, that ship has sailed and I'm okay with that. I'm ready for the next stages. Not a rush, but I'm ready for the next stages. Most symptoms will start to ease up and optimistically, the hot flashes and the night sweats, will reduce, and mood swings and sleep and brain fog and everything will all even out. I do have competing conditions, so I will still be dealing with brain fog. I still will be dealing with some of these different things. Post-menopause, though, I really don't know. I'm just hoping to get to that 1-year magic mark and then see what changes I have to deal with from there. The things I do know is I have to work harder on implementing my exercise, on eating healthy, because those are things that, as we get older, become more difficult to manage. And it's important to make sure that you establish those habits and establish that behavior now to support you. As I said at the very first episode, this is our first time going through life. This is the first time any of us are experiencing any of these things. And there is no script. No pre-described plan on when everything happens. Yes, there's markers. Yes, there's averages. Here's where it happens for the majority of people, but nothing is predetermined. And it is important that we do continuous learning and self-awareness and address and adopt and adapt to the changes that are happening in our life. No matter your age, I hope you enjoyed this episode. And, if you do, be sure to like, subscribe, and tell your friends. And just in closing, a couple of tips for you to consider. One of the other things that's really beneficial is talk to your family, your female family members. Find out what their history, what were their experiences like? Was it easy for them? What age did it happen? You can sometimes see a pattern, and that could kind of help you determine if your symptoms are similar or alike, or if it's something else. You may also uncover other health issues that you can monitor for. It is important to know that stuff so that you can help as you're going through it. The next thing, talk to your gut doctors. And as I said before, trust your gut. If you want a second opinion, ask for a second opinion, or go with the questions that you want answered, or ask them to explain something a little bit more to you. Talk to a therapist or a mental health specialist. Prioritize your mental and physical health equally so that you're taking care of both. In doing that, you're going to manage your stress, you're going to manage your mindfulness, your mental health, so that as hormones are changing, you're better capable of managing it. You can deal with those feelings, those irritations and stuff better. You know, coping skills. So it is important to balance both together. And just be sure to take care of yourself. And your mental health is a huge step of self-care. So make sure that you are doing those things that matter to you. Once I've been through menopause and I've actually come out the other side, I'll be happy to share any additional tips that I learned. So stay tuned for future episodes and we'll see what happens. If there is anything, and if you've already seen that side, feel free to share your comments, add your input, and let us know so that those of us who are still struggling or curious what's coming up can see some of your answers or ask some additional questions. You can always find me on Instagram. Just look for 50s Unscripted and you will find me there, and go to the website as well, 50sunscripted.com, and you can find other information and links. Take care, stay strong, stay happy, take care of you, and we'll see you next time. Hey, you're still here. Have you checked out the next episode? It's a really good one. Lots of great stories. I think you should check it out. You'll enjoy, and make sure to subscribe so you get notified when new ones drop.